Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Untitled Library Podcast. I'm Brad Castleberry. Today, we are lucky enough to talk with Troy Espe. Troy is the coordinator of Interlibrary Loan and Reference and has worked for the UWSP Libraries for over 11 years. Our conversation covers everything from growing up in Minnesota to attending UW Madison for graduate school to Troy's journey of changing professions and everything in between. First, thank you, Troy, for joining me.
My pleasure being here, Brad.
So, to start things off, where did you grow up? Where were you born?
I was born a poor white boy in Mankato, Minnesota. We moved around quite a bit, child of divorce, but usually when things went awry, we would end up back in Mankato, Minnesota.
Okay. How long did you live in Minnesota?
Well, that's a tough one. I did grow up there, so you could say most of my childhood and then 4 years of college. So,
was reading important to you from a young age, in grade school?
It wasn't.
No.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. So my grandma and my mom are voracious readers. Grandma loved Harlequin romance novels, and mom loved horror, especially Stephen King. I have been a slow reader my entire life. I still am, which is, kind of the scarlet letter for being a librarian.
Right. Yeah.
It takes me a long time to finish a book. I do enjoy reading, but yeah, I average probably about once a month. Anyways, a kid, no, I was a big TV watcher, watched way too much TV. Pretty much destroyed my childhood, I think. Loved sports, loved movies, loved music. So reading was not high on my list.
Oh, that's understandable. I mean, when you're a kid, sometimes you just want to get outside and play instead of
that too.
Read.
I love sports and watching them, playing them, and then reading was always kind of been a struggle for me. So
Did you go to high school in Minnesota then?
I did. Yep, Mankato West, where Governor Walz.
Is that right?
Yeah, he came
that's fun.
7 years after me, so I've never met the dude.
No, but still a neat connection.
Yeah, he taught at my alma mater.
Oh wow! So, did you play sports in high school? Did you?
Poorly.
Were you in clubs?
No, I was very introverted. I grew up kind of in extreme poverty. This was during the materialistic 80s, and I was pretty ashamed of my family
running around.
Oh yeah, the preppy kids. So so everything was kind of reserved for them, at least unofficially. So I just kind of tried to keep to myself and not expose myself too much. Very shy. So I did play junior varsity tennis though, and if you've ever seen the Espe Awards, I think that's where they got the name.
Definitely.
From my performance on the tennis courts in junior varsity.
It's very impressive. Huh?
Oh, yeah, it's an honor.
So then you decided, I'm going to go to college?
Yep.
You knew that right away coming out of high school?
I did. I knew that at a very early age. That was kind of my escape from poverty. And so I knew very early that I was going to go to college. That's what got me through high school. I really hated high school, but I knew college was on the horizon. So that's all my hopes and dreams and aspirations were all about college. Yeah,
it's inspirational.
I guess. Yeah. I mean,
did you get good grades then?
I did. I got very good grades.
You knew you had to get good grades to get into college.
Yeah, because my standardized scores were not that good, and I don't consider myself like a naturally smart person, so I think I had to work probably harder at it than most A students, but yeah, they were very important to me to get good grades,
and it paid off.
Sure.
Did you ended up going to Mankato, is that right?
No, I went to University of Minnesota.
Oh, you did? Yes.
Yeah, yep.
Did you apply to just that school? Was that your...
I applied to a bunch, but again, all the other ones were like out of state, and so there would have been like out of state tuition, and then even just getting to like orientation and stuff was really not feasible for my family. So no, I went with University of Minnesota. It was about 80 miles away, and yeah.
Did you establish a major right away?
Not really. So yeah, this is this is another really complicated story. So I originally picked architecture just because I was good at math, but I didn't know what you would do if you were good at math. And I said, well, architects probably use a lot of math. I mean, this was 1989. This was way before the internet and all that stuff too. And then my first, we were actually on quarters way back in the 1900s. I got like 2 B's and a C or whatever, and they wrote me a letter saying you pretty much can't get into the architecture school.
Oh, I suppose very competitive.
Extremely competitive. Extremely competitive. So then I was like, well, I should probably do something else. And around that time, there was this movie that came out called The Dead Poets Society. Yeah. Don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
And so it was all about
Captain, my captain.
Captain, my captain. Yeah. Right, exactly. And it's all about following your passion and following your heart and all that. And I'm like, well, I like to write. So then, like, same thing with math. Like, what do you do as a writer? So I said, well, you become a journalist, right? So then I changed my major to journalism. And it's coincidental. In my journalism career, I actually ended up interviewing the director of the Dead Poets Society. He directed The Truman Show. And I should have told him, like, dude, you're the reason I'm sitting here interviewing you today because of your stupid movie, Dead Poets Society. So then I did. I switched to
So what was the circumstances that you got to interview him?
Well, I was a reporter for 17 years,
okay,
including down in the Florida Panhandle, and that is actually where The Truman Show was filmed. There's this very, like, they call it a planned community.
Yes, yep.
And so it's called Seaside, which is an actual town. And I think in the movie it's actually called Sea Haven, but all the houses kind of look similar with pastel house, and the town itself is kind of a character in the movie in that he's trapped there and everything is very fabricated and stuff. So the director was there for media hype, promote the movie. There was a world premiere there. And I worked at the newspaper about 30, 40 miles away. And so just got invited and got to meet him and see the premiere. And
Was it like a junket type thing where you sit down where there's like a bunch of reporters?
There were a bunch of reporters, but it was extremely informal. In fact, he just sat on the lawn someplace in Seaside, and we just kind of all sat around him and threw out questions. And he talked about the movie, his inspiration for it, and casting Jim Carrey and all that. So
that's really neat.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was full circle. I wish I would have savored it more in the moment and told him that our connection, or that he actually inspired somebody to chase their dreams. And now here I am interviewing.
After you declared journalism, what year was that in college?
That would have probably been 1990.
Okay. And then you obviously did an excellent job. You graduated.
I did graduate. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 93.
And then you sent out applications across the country. How did you get your foot in the door in journalism?
Pretty much just through blind. Well, I did some. So University of Minnesota is a little weird. It actually had a daily newspaper that was the third largest daily newspaper in the state. Just because there's 50,000 students, so they would print that many, and so it was like Minneapolis Star Tribune, St. Paul Pioneer Press, and then the Minnesota Daily. So I did some freelance for them, so I got some stuff published there. And then I just blindly walked into an internship in Peoria, Illinois, of all places. So that gave me some experience. And then, and then I was unemployed, living at home for a couple months. And then I finally got my start in the Rice Lake Chronotype here in Wisconsin. So that was my first.
So you had no problem with the prospect of moving for your career?
No,
obviously.
I wanted to move. I wanted to get down south. Anywhere where it was warm. No, I didn't. Okay. I mean, I had family, but I was ready to explore.
Yep. Well, no, there's nothing wrong with it. So 17 years in journalism, that is a long time.
It is.
So let's go through your journey. You were in Rice Lake, Wisconsin.
Yep.
For how long?
About a year and a half or so, close to 2 years, yeah.
And you were a reporter?
Yeah, general assignment. So that
Okay.
basically what that means is just anything that comes up. So there's like crime reporters, government reporters, feature writer, and so I was kind of general assignment. It's kind of a jack of all trades.
Is that considered the entry level position of a newspaper?
A lot of times it is, yeah. You get kind of other crap stories that nobody else wants to do.
Was there did you want to do sports? Did you want to do
No,
top headlines?
No, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so it worked out really well in that sense that I got a kind of a taste of anything. I was just kind of hungry and right out of journalism school and pretty much willing to do anything. Yeah. And I did it was a small paper. We only had 6 reporters, so I did get to do some sports. Did get do some crime, some feature stories.
So it's not the worst getting a little bit of everything.
No, I was really I consider it a blessing. Even though it was a small paper, there was like some extremely good writers there. So I learned a ton. I'm still friends with a lot of them. I still visit back in Rice Lake.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'll be hunting there in
really?
a couple weeks. So,
It's good to keep those connections.
It really was fortunate to land there, and I'm really thankful for that experience.
And then after there, where'd you go?
Then I went to Waukesha Freeman newspaper in Wisconsin.
Waukesha,
yeah.
Larger newspaper, I would imagine.
A little bit larger. It was kind of a weird thing. Your listeners are going to be bored to death by this, but this was so Milwaukee used to have 2 daily newspapers. They used to have the Journal and the Sentinel.
Yeah. And
then they merged it must have been around 1995, 96, right around in there. And so the Waukesha Freeman saw an opportunity to try to grab some readership with this merger. So they ended up hiring me. So
you were their secret weapon, man.
Well, I don't know about that because the paper ended up getting sold and everything. So, so I ended up going there.
Okay, and then after that?
After that is when I got the job for the News Herald in Panama City, Florida, which was,
you said you wanted to move south, so were you always on the lookout for people hiring?
I was, and that was really my dream job. I just love the beaches in the Florida Panhandle. I remember the first time I saw the sugar white sand and the turquoise water, and I didn't know there was any place like that in the United States. I thought you had to go to Hawaii or the Bahamas or something like that. So that was just really I just fell in love with it instantly. So to get a job there was really a dream come true.
Paying you to live in your paradise.
Right. I really was. I really felt like I was. Yeah.
And how many years did you stay there?
Almost 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that your last job as a reporter, or
no,
did you move on?
I moved on. So then after that, I foolishly moved back to Wisconsin to Eau Claire, where I worked for the Leader Telegram newspaper for 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was your longest stint.
It was. Yeah. I didn't think I'd be there 6 months. But
really?
But then, of course, you ended up. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And these places get their claws in you.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Did you move back to Wisconsin for family or for familiarity?
A variety of reasons. There was a girl involved, but
sure.
I hate to blame it on her. It's mostly my fault. I was kind of too big for my britches down in Florida and thought I was this hot shot, and I didn't get along with a new editor, and so I thought if I left, the place would just crumble and stuff. But
they managed to stay afloat.
They replaced me that same afternoon. Got along just fine, and meanwhile, I'm back to the frozen tundra of Wisconsin, freezing my buns off. No more sugar white sand or turquoise water. So serves me right. I'll take full responsibility.
Hey, you can still vacation down there at least.
And I have. Yeah.
At some point, you worked for the McIntyre Library in Eau Claire.
I did. Yeah.
Is that related to your moving back and then?
Yeah. So what happened? You're probably aware of this. Well, the newspaper industry kind of imploded. Mm-hmm. So we had the Leader Telegram had mass layoffs, but it was industry wide. And so I thought I'd retire a reporter. I just thought that was what I would do the rest of my life. And then so it kind of became evident that I should look for a different line of work. And I had worked at the veterinary library in college, and I really liked working at the library. And then I took a couple classes at UW Eau Claire, library classes. They had actually a library science minor. And so I was able to take a couple library classes there, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to make the jump to library school. And so so it took me a couple of years before they finally admitted me to library school. And then instead of a thesis, you had to do a practicum, which I was all about. So I'd much rather get some experience than write a thesis. So my wife was still in Eau Claire. I was in Madison, and then they arranged for me to do a practicum at McIntyre Library at UW Eau Claire. So it worked out really well. I could actually live with my wife that summer and then finish my practicum at McIntyre.
Okay, so then you were attending UW Madison for your master's degree.
Correct. That was while I was in library school. Yeah.
How was your experience in Madison?
I loved it. I really loved it. I turned 40, and it was a wonderful place to have a midlife crisis. No, it was just it was so practical. So I went to the University of Minnesota, which was a very, research university and heavy. And so journalism classes were more theory based than actually practicing. So I used to joke that I didn't know how to write an article headline, but I could tell you the effects of a New York Times headline on the population of Southeast immigrants between the years of 1927 and 1928 in lower to upper Manhattan.
Exactly.
So I felt wholly unprepared going into newspapers coming out of this very theory-based journalism school. But library school was actually quite exactly the opposite. I just couldn't believe how hands-on and practical it was. And it was just a lot of fun. I mean, it was we were a separate school, almost all the... Did you go to Madison?
I went to Milwaukee.
You went to Milwaukee. Did you go in person or online?
No, it was online.
Online, okay. Yeah, so there's about 200 of us in person, and almost all my classes were in the same classroom. It was all on the same floor. And
Get to know everybody you're going to school with.
Yeah, made really good friends. And so I just got involved in a bunch of clubs and stuff, and we'd organize events. Almost got arrested at a bonfire, but I think the police officers were more embarrassed busting a bunch of library students than we were
causing
busted.
Too much chaos.
No, it was during a fire. What do you call it? Fire ban.
Oh yeah.
And but it had been lifted, but the signs were still up.
Oh, no.
And so someone called the cops on us. And then I think when the cops came down and saw us there, and then we told them we're from the library school, they were just like, okay, I think everything's under control here. Nothing to see, folks. So
oh my God.
So we would do lots of fun stuff. We would do go to women's hockey games, things like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was there an aspect of libraries that interested you before going into graduate school?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to do academic libraries, and that's because I worked at one in college, and so I knew
that's where you're most comfortable.
Right, and I was and I knew I wanted to do reference too. I was open to pretty much anything as long as it was in a university library. Mm-hmm. I took a cataloging class, like, no, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And then the is very IT, very computer science oriented as well. And I knew I was much more kind of a user interface type person than getting
the back end.
The ones and zeros and the HTMLs and the Fortran statements and all that. But
so you prefer the public facing interacting with your students and patrons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then you graduated from college.
I did, yeah.
And I'm guessing, did you move back to Eau Claire?
I moved back to Stevens Point. My wife she was still in grad school here in Stevens Point. So, I was unemployed for, I think, 4 months. So I was living out in County Road C.
Living it up?
I loved it. It was great. I couldn't spend any money because I was unemployed, and my wife's in graduate school. But I rented a little farmhouse, and
nice.
I had a kicking stereo, and so
So the midlife crisis was still going.
It probably still is.
But then a job opened up, I'm guessing, at UW Stevens Point?
Eventually. So it was a roundabout way. So I think I applied probably 6 times before I finally got in here. So my old library, Steenbach Library at UW Madison, I think they must have took pity on me and hired me. So I actually had to move back to Madison.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I noticed. Yeah, you worked your entire time as a graduate student in libraries?
I did,
is that right?
Yeah. I had 2 different ones. College library, which was the undergraduate library. It's 24-hour library. And then Steenbach Library, which is the agriculture library.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had plenty of experience.
I did, yeah. And I did 2 practicum, McIntyre Library, and then I did a teaching instruction practicum at Memorial Library, which is kind of the flagship
that's
library.
The big one.
Yeah, that's the big, scary one.
How did that work? You got a job in Madison while living in Stevens Point?
Yeah, so I had to move back down there and get an apartment, and I was below this guy, Joe, who was really into Gwar.
Oh, yeah.
Heavy metal. Yeah, so he would just...
Beavis and Butthead are fans of Gwar, too, I believe.
That would explain it. So he would just blare that, and I'm a librarian, and I'm just like, yeah, so that didn't last for long. So finally, I guess my 6th application, UW Stevens Point decided to finally let me on board, and so then I was able to leave Madison and then move.
Was Stevens Point hiring that many positions during this time period, or?
I think so. I mean, I don't know if they were all library positions, but yeah, like the one your listeners are not going to know this, but whoever preceded Melissa, I think that one came closest. And then I did apply for a couple librarian positions and never got anywhere. Yeah, it was just a tough.
It was a grind, huh?
Yeah, and I think I might have applied for other departments as well, just because my wife lived here, and so I wanted to, wanted to live nearby.
Well, absolutely. Who was the library director when you were applying? Do you remember?
That was Kathy Davis.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in 2013?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you finally got hired
as
the Instruction Materials Center Assistant.
Yeah, so it was a paraprofessional job, and I don't know if your listeners would know this, but librarianship's kind of weird in that a lot of not everyone's a librarian, but a lot of our workers have library master's degrees, but they're working in at the library, but not in a position that requires a library degree, and so they're kind of overqualified, underpaid. And it's pretty rampant throughout the industry, if you could call it that. So I was a paraprofessional for 2 years before I finally became a librarian.
You were happy, though, with the position? You were just happy to have your foot in the door?
Yeah, I really liked it. So I was.
Who was your supervisor?
That was Mindy.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, yeah. She was my first boss.
So did you get along with her?
Well, I did, yeah. So, but no, it was nice because I was on the 3rd floor, which was where the IMC was located, and there were 2 computer labs there. So, and then a bunch of some study rooms and stuff too. So it was a pretty bustling floor. And so I would kind of just sit outside my office and answer lots of reference questions. I mean, if anything was too nitty gritty, I'd refer them downstairs, but 99% was the printer's not working. So, so yeah, it was, I really enjoyed it.
And then a faculty position opened up.
Yeah, so Patty Becker, who was the reference librarian, she retired, and that was my dream job. I always wanted to be a reference librarian, so it was just couldn't ask for more. So yeah.
Was it a grueling interview process?
It was standard.
Yeah.
You had to meet. It was kind of funny because I was working in the building, and so I think I actually had to go home to take the phone call.
Yeah.
the first round was
the tour of the campus.
No, I skipped all that. Yeah. So so the first round was by telephone. So I think I actually went home and did it there, and then drove back to the library. And then I did make it to the second round, and then because I skipped like the campus tour and all that stuff, I had some downtime, so I just went to my office.
I did the exact same
thing. In a suit. Yeah. I'm just working, clearing up some emails and answering some questions, and then waiting for them to call me back. And
hopefully,
so, yeah. So no, it worked out really well.
And you've been in that position ever since.
I have, yeah.
11 years now.
11 years total here. Yeah, 10 as a librarian, I think.
So what exactly does your day look like as a reference librarian? You're also supervisor of ILL, is that right?
Yeah. So I do reference in Interlibrary Loan. So as the reference librarian, I schedule our reference desk, which is located in Collins Classroom Center. So just make sure that's staffed. I think we're down to less than 40 hours a week now, but so that's drop in. Anyone can just come in, ask questions, but then we also answer questions via chat, text, email, phone. You can make an appointment with us as well. So I coordinate all that, and then I also staff it. I think I do about 8 hours a week in there as well. And then, Interlibrary Loan is also my terrain. So anything, article, book, video, you name it. If we can't get it through the UW system, or what used to be called the UW system, we'll get it through Interlibrary Loan. And so, we request items all over the world. We get stuff that comes through customs from Denmark, Australia, Asia. There's really nothing that I wouldn't say nothing, but there's very few items that we can't get for you. And then if we can't get it through Interlibrary Loan, a lot of times we'll just buy it. So you can think of it as something, backwater regional university, but I'll put our library resources up against any of them.
Oh yeah,
I think with Interlibrary Loan, there's really, again, nothing,
it's limitless,
nothing you can't get.
In the new library, will reference availability be expanded?
I assume so. We haven't quite discussed that. One thing that will be new is that we will sit at the same desk as circulation. Okay. So, and that is something that we've been kicking around, for at least 10 years, because students don't often know where to go for reference questions. So they don't understand, and nor should they, that they're separate desks. So a lot of times they'll just go to the circulation desk, which is, again, totally fine. And then the circulation students are supposed to refer them to the reference desk, but that doesn't always happen. And so you have students trying to answer kind of in-depth research questions. So, and then the patron gets kind of what we call ping-ponging. So they get, they're getting sent all over the place, and it's just not good optics.
No, it is.
So we'll be together. So, and I have worked at libraries where the circulation and the reference desk were together, and it's worked really well, just because again, someone might come up to me and say, I just want to check out this book. I'd be like, oh, well, here, Lindsay.
Go right over there.
Yeah, step to your right. Lindsay will check that out for you. And then someone will come to Lindsay and say, I need 10 empirical sources on, some research question.
Right.
She's, oh, well, step right over.
He's right here.
Yeah. So I think the collaboration is going to be much improved and easier for patrons, just to, because they were talking about putting the reference desk on the second floor, and the circulation would be on the first. But then I think we would have just run into the same problem. So I'm really,
especially on different floors.
Right.
Just head up over those stairs and turn to your right.
It's just another barrier that you want to
avoid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And as a librarian, I believe one of your requirements is instruction. What classes or sessions do you take care of?
Well, I am liaison to School of Performing Arts, I believe, if that's the school now. We just switched to schools. I don't know all their names. And then the School of Education. And then I kind of do the whole gamut, though. I'll do social work, English classes. I do quite a few graduate classes, so those have been my favorite. So the Ed.D. program, the Masters of Music Education program, some CNR classes as well. I've taught our 1-credit course, Library Resources 101. Recently, I'm kind of stepping back from classroom instruction and trying to do more online, like virtual record videos.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That way they're available to anyone at any time.
Yeah, what seems to work best is I'll record a lecture, put it in Canvas, and then create a Canvas quiz. So then the professor can just assign the quiz to their students, and then they watch the video, they do 5 questions, whatever, it's graded. And
it also saves time on scheduling and logistics. And
yeah, no class time. It can be graded automatically. It's really pretty much plug and play, and yeah, you're done.
It seems like our library faculty, they're really embedded in a lot of classes on campus. Is there a metric of how many?
We do, and it is really high. I know that about half of our students each year attend some kind of library instruction session, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I don't know if those are unique students. I know some students might have to sit through three or four of them. But nevertheless, our instruction program is really robust and more than I've heard of any other university. But
is there an effort to attract freshmen instead of them waiting for library instruction when they're juniors?
It's become more difficult, and I think we're seeing some of the fallout of that. So it used to be that first-year students had to take Communications 101. That was just a required. You couldn't get out of it. And then so we had an agreement that we would do one classroom period would be a library instruction session. And so it was wild. I remember doing this. One time I had 6 classes in a row, all Comm 101s. But there was because it was required, there would be over 30 sections each semester. And then we would divide it up between the librarians. Okay, who's going to take these? So it just got really crazy. But they've changed it now so that you don't, Comm 101 isn't required. You can take some other classes instead. So students are falling through the cracks. So we're getting a lot of first-year students who have not received library instruction. So so we've been working with the faculty and the professors and saying, it is still important that they get some exposure to that. And there are options. I understand class time is precious. We don't have to take up a full class time. We can do videos. We can do whatever you need. So but it's an ongoing effort on our part.
That's the most important time to get to them, I would imagine, right? As soon as they walk in the door, you need a library if you're going to, succeed in your classes. So you went from being a journalist to doing instruction sessions for the library. Did you have any trouble with the transition?
Yes and no. So I didn't even know librarians taught classes when I went to when I first started library school. So that was a new concept to me. And when I was an undergrad, no library, and I worked at a library, and so. I was just totally unfamiliar, but I was open to the idea. And so I did take an instruction practicum in library school. And then my first job out of library school was at Steenbach Agriculture, and they did something similar to our Comm 101s. I think it was like Biology 152, but they just had this, tons of students, tons of sections or whatever, and they would let me teach some of those.
When you are not at work, what do you do for fun and relaxation?
Anything outdoors. So I love fishing, camping, hiking, hunting. So just try to get outdoors as much as possible.
Do you tent camp or do you have a camper?
A tent camp,
that's
still.
what I'm doing too.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's awesome. You got any favorite parks or any place you like to go? Or?
Well, we haven't gone much since we had our son.
Oh, okay.
So it's been about 4 years, but this last summer we just started to see if he could handle it. So we just went to Lake Emily a couple times.
Oh, nice.
Right
I love
by
Lake
Amherst.
Emily. Yeah.
So you hunt. What do you hunt for?
White-tailed deer. Yep.
You do?
Yep.
So you stay around central Wisconsin?
Near Rice Lake,
okay.
Northwest Wisconsin, so Prairie Farms where I hunt,
And you gun hunt or do you bow?
Gun hunt only, and I've never bow hunted, but I can't hit the suckers with a rifle. I love, usually your hobbies are something that you're good at.
Yeah.
Like, you have a natural ability. I have zero hunting. I am terrible hunter.
Yeah. You like being outside though.
But I like being outside, so I can just sit there in the tree stand for hours on end, and I just enjoy it. So,
So the years where it's 10 below zero and a foot of snow, is that cool with you too?
I'll do it. Yeah. I'll tromp around or whatever to keep warm, or go back to the car and have some coffee and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, but very few of those anymore. So,
right.
Yeah.
I know it seems like it's warmer every year for hunting.
Yeah.
Which is bad, right?
You want snow to track.
You can't follow.
Yeah. So, but and you can see them much better with snow. So if you get snow deer hunting, it's like really rare, but it's wonderful.
And then you also hike?
Yep, hike a lot.
Do you bike?
Occasionally, not as much anymore.
Okay.
So, yep.
Where do you hike? Around here?
The Ice Age Trail,
yes.
actually. There's a section called what's it called now? New Hope. So I call it the Luke Skywalker section, because as everyone knows, Episode 4 of Star Wars was a New Hope. Yep. But no, it's this. It's like this 4.5 mile section of it that I think is probably one of the most beautiful sections, and it's also happens to be the closest to Stevens Point. So we go out there quite a bit.
So it goes through New Hope?
Yeah.
So it's through the northern part of Amherst, or town of Amherst?
Yeah, it's near there. Yeah.
Okay.
It's it's not too far. Sunset Lake, kind of. Yeah. So it's just, I would say, southeast of there. Okay. But it's never crowded. Whereas other sections like Skunk Foster are way more crowded. But this section of it, I think is far prettier.
I hope you enjoyed the discussion with Troy as much as I did. If so, please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, keep reading, keep exploring, and remember, the library is always open for discovery.